Okay, so you have a gun, and there's a person with a knife.
Yes.
And we're this close. What's the probability of me getting seriously hurt or killed from you having a knife and me having a gun?
100%. We've all heard that saying, oh, the cream rises to the top. In a stressful situation, the cream's going to rise to the top, and you're going to
rise to the occasion.
And you're going to rise to the occasion. And I ask people, do you actually believe that? I go, that's a lie. That is the worst lie you could tell yourself. You're not going to rise to the occasion. You will fall to the level of your training. You will fall to the level of what you think about on a daily basis.
Never turn your back.
Never turn your back. I was taught a long time ago by one of my mentors, his saying was, always face your butt kicking. Always face it. If you're going to get your butt kicked, face it. Because at least you have a chance to survive. If you even just doing this, you have a chance of survival. The second you turn your back, you can't see anything, you can't do anything, you've given up all hope. You're going to lose that fight. Now, every block can be a strike, and every strike can be a block. For example, if you were to throw a slow motion haymaker, if I was able to punch you in the arm,
that would hurt.
That's going to block that punch.
Sure.
I'm not good enough to do that in real life.
Sure.
But if I use my whole body to initiate that block, I can make that block become a strike.
Motivate, inspire, educate. Welcome to Ultra Everything.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Ultra Everything. Today, I am your host, as always, Thomas Mestis. But today I have the true honor of bringing on a friend. And what's great about today's podcast is this podcast is really designed that it potentially can save your life and your family's life. And so I've got the honor of having a true, legit badass here. He is an ex-UNM football player, a retired police officer, black belt in jiu-jitsu, owner of an amazing gym where he's coaching fitness and teaching people to empower themselves and get stronger through fitness and education. But more importantly now is he has the tremendous opportunity to train our law enforcement how they can actually prevent themselves from being injured on the job and protecting themselves and just being more aware. So today's episode is going to go dive deep into that, and I am so happy to have Vicente Alvarado. I apologize. Vicente, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. Dude, like we've been friends now for a little over 6 years, and the stuff that you do and currently do and that you teach people, mindset stuff, is absolutely amazing. So
thank you.
I appreciate you being here, kind of dropping some knowledge on some people here today that are our listeners and our people that are going to view this on YouTube. So super happy to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, so let's kind of get into it. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in the world, in our local environment too. And what I promised our listeners here and our viewers is that this potentially could save their life, and that was no joke, because what is going on in our world today, there's a lot of mental illness, there's a lot of obviously homelessness, and with the mental illness, but people are out there to protect themselves too. The homeless people are out there to protect themselves, but a lot of them are armed.
Yes.
And we've seen that firsthand just because of the gym that we go to. You've actually seen some crazy stuff going on over there.
Yeah, I was actually attacked by a homeless person, armed with a knife.
Armed with a knife, like not just a little knife, like a
no. It was about a 10-inch blade, fixed blade.
Yeah.
They pulled out of their basket and kind of closed the distance on me right there in front of the door.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, it was definitely.
But I don't want to obviously to kind of get into this podcast scaring people, but I think the opportunity is I think education is the key, right? So educating yourself on how to prevent those situations, but also through physical fitness, through a lot of different things that you can actually work on. So today's episode is really going to be on like self-improvement, but also really paying attention to your surroundings and getting a little bit better, and saying that I've heard this before, that no one's coming to save you. You have to be available to save yourself. You have to be of that mindset to be able to do that.
Yes, definitely.
So cool, man. Let's get into it. So.
Right.
I did kind of give a little bit of a list of things that you've accomplished in your life. So you're born and raised in Albuquerque?
Yes, born and raised in Albuquerque, lived here all my life. Went to, of course, grade school, middle school, high school. Wanted to play football at a higher level, and I didn't want to go anywhere else. I wanted to stay here in my home state.
Nice.
So I walked on for the New Mexico Lobos football team.
Wow.
In '92, and after about a year of being a walk-on, they offered me a full scholarship.
Wow, that's
so
awesome.
I got to travel around, play against some amazing players that you've seen on the NFL, like Marshall Faulk, Trent Dilfer, all these guys that I was able to play against that were just phenomenal athletes. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. It was just such a great experience there.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you played, and so this was in 1992. So you played through 92 through
95.
Through 95.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And then after that, I went on. I always wanted to be a police officer, so I entered in the process of becoming a police officer and was able to get in. And I spent 20 years there. During that time, I of course worked patrol for a few years. From there, I went on to our Central Narcotics Unit, Region 1 Narcotics Task Force, where I ran a drug detection canine, had an opportunity to do some undercover work. Had a lot of experiences in that unit, had a lot of fun, but pretty intense time in my life working narcotics. From there, I went back in uniform to learn how to be a police officer again, because once you go undercover like that, you kind of lose contact of the real world. You know, you're so engulfed in that criminal world and that criminal element that you kind of lose track of things. It gets to the point where I would tell my family, hey, if you see me out somewhere, you know, in public, don't come talk to me because I might be working.
Yeah.
If I don't come talk to you first, don't come up to me and talk to me, because we were working in that capacity. So
Sure.
you didn't want anything to blow your cover, because that could endanger yourself or
your family.
Or your family.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I had to learn to be a cop again. I did that for another couple of years, and then went back into a plainclothes undercover unit, working our impact teams, burglary unit, and I finally retired out of the organized retail crime unit. But also during that time with the department, I had a great opportunity to become a defensive tactics instructor, where we taught not only cadets but seasoned officers how to defend themselves, not if they got into a physical confrontation, but when, and how bad was that going to be. And hopefully they made it home safely, you know, to their families. With that experience, I was fortunate enough to become an expert in police use of force, court certified expert. Here in the state of New Mexico and in the state of Montana, I testified in cases where they certified me as an expert in police use of force in a couple of cases. So that was a great experience there as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds. I'm sure you have story after story, especially being undercover.
Yeah, there's been a few of them, definitely.
Yeah. Wow. More recently in the news and the headlines, you've seen, unfortunately, a lot of sad stories about police officers under attack and being murdered on the job. And I think that's one of those things that that's a reality that every time they put on that uniform, there's a possibility they're not going to return home.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that, when I go to work, I know, of course I don't know for a fact, but I've got a pretty good idea that I'm going to make it home this evening. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the case in the mindset of going in as a police officer, going out and saying, hey, I'm putting on this uniform and I may not be taking this off,
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. During my law enforcement career, that's where I really started to understand the mindset aspect of things, where every time I got dressed for work, once I put that bulletproof vest on, my mindset had to change. And I was still at home getting ready for work. But the second that bulletproof vest came on, I had to turn my mindset into, I got to come home at the end of the night to my family. And that was a daily thing, for 20 years that I was in the department. Every day you get ready for work, you strap that gun on your hip, you put a vest on, you have to be ready for anything that could possibly happen. So your mindset has to change from the moment you put that vest on to the moment you come home and take that vest off. Yeah. Your mindset has to be geared towards survival and protecting others so other people can survive whatever tragedies that they're facing. So it was a complete mindset, and that's where I really started to understand that concept.
Yeah, I think that actually holds true, like, as a father, going out, like I'm always kind of like, I've obviously never been in the military myself or into law enforcement, but I think going out and just having that heightened sense that you're kind of scanning and you're looking, and unfortunately you always, they say don't read the book by its cover, but unfortunately when you're out in public, you're scanning, certain types of people, you're looking at them differently, and it's not necessarily good, but it's also like, I think it's something that is really from our ancestry, right? That we have to be aware of our surroundings. We have to be aware of potential risks to protect your family and do all that. And I think that in this day and age, where the majority of the population is down looking at their phone, that I think that leaves you open to be a target, you know?
Absolutely, yes. And there's, in all the teachings that I teach across the state, active shooter response for civilians, defensive tactics for undercover officers, there's always that element of you have to be aware of your surroundings everywhere you go. Doesn't matter where doesn't matter where you go, shopping centers, restaurants, grocery stores, you always have to know, where am I? Where are my exits? Sure. There's so many people that don't realize that when you walk into a place, how do I get out of this place if something happens? If there's an earthquake or there's a natural disaster, if somebody comes in with a gun or something happens where people have to get out quickly, where are you going to run to if you don't know where your exits are?
Yeah.
So I go through this whole process of teaching people that, be aware of your exits. For example, when I travel, I have to stay in hotels, of course. So depending on whether I'm on the first floor or second floor and above, I always tell people I need to know where my exits are. So I have this routine that I go through, and I travel. I get to my hotel, I put all my stuff away, and I have to go get snacks for my hotel room. So I got to go to visit a local grocery store. So I walk out of my hotel room, the door closes behind me, and I look left and I look right. And I'm looking for exits. I'm looking for either an exit if I'm on the first floor, or I'm looking for a stairway if I'm on the second floor and above. Once I find my closest stairway, I pace it off. Just a regular step. I pace it off 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm leaving the hotel anyway, and I pace my steps to the staircase. Then once I get there, let's say it's 23 steps to the left, then I count how many steps all the way down to where the exit is. Let's say it's 23 and 50. Now I know, 23 and 50. These two numbers are just floating in my head now all day long, 23 and 50. I'm not stressed about it, but I know if something bad happens, 23 and 50 to my left. Just to get out of the place. And when I teach active shooter training, I ask people, am I expecting an active shooter in my hotel? Not necessarily, but what else can happen in hotels? Fires, right? And usually in the middle of the night. And when fires break out, power outages are usually accompanied with that. You can't see anything, you probably can't breathe, you're choking, and that can make panic happen really quick. When you can't breathe, panic can set in really fast.
Very quick.
And then just trying to find the door to get out of your hotel room. Once you find the door, which way are you going to go?
Yeah.
And I give people the example. What if you're on vacation at Disneyland, in the Disneyland hotel on the 10th story, and you're there with your family, and you fall asleep at night, and all of a sudden you wake up and you can't breathe, you're choking, there's a fire. How in the world are you going to get out of that hotel?
Yeah, with your family.
With your family.
Yeah.
Not just by yourself now.
You have to be the calm one, right?
You've got to be the calm one, and you need to know, how do I get out of this place? And when people start understanding that everywhere I go, I want to know where my exits are, they're going to realize that they frequent a lot of unsafe places where there's one way in, one way out.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't realize that until you start to account for, how do I get out of this place?
That's what you would refer to as situational awareness, is that right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Just understanding
situational
where
awareness.
you're at. You know, it's kind of interesting. I was yesterday, I was having lunch at a local restaurant, and I'm eating, but I have this always on my mind for whatever reason. Maybe it's just from being around you, or being at the gym, or just talking about these things. So now I'm a little bit more aware. I'm really watching people come in and out, like just not like really paying that much attention, but paying enough attention where I know where these people are at, right, when they walk in. The other night we went to the movie theater late at night, took my daughters, and just paying attention who was in the theater. If for some reason there was a shooter, how do we get down? Where could we hide? How can we get out? Doing all those things. And it's so funny because, I'm not in law enforcement by any means, but I want to make sure that when I take my family somewhere that we're safe. I was actually down in a parking structure downtown recently. And you know how parking structures are dark, they're barely lit. It's during the day, and it's still dark inside. And you have nooks and crannies and corners and cars and all these things. The minute I got off the elevator, I scanned the surroundings, just like what you were saying. You look to your left, look to your right, and I just looked around to see if there's anything out of the norm, right? And then I proceeded to my car, but as I'm going to my car, I'm also prepared, right? I have something in my hand, my keys or whatever, in the event that anything needs to happen, and you're kind of looking around to see what those things are. But I don't think most people do that. In fact, most people get off the elevator in the phone and they're walking like, oh, where did I go? They walk.
They have no idea where they are.
They have no idea where they are.
On their phone.
The floor. They don't know if there are cars over here. So, I mean, when you start looking at it like that, you're like, holy crap, you're really opening yourself up for, if somebody wants to rob you, hurt you in any capacity, kidnap you, whatever, in today's society, I think they can do it very easily.
Very easily, yes, because people are so distracted.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about the cell phone era, in that we are part of human history where we have developed the greatest distraction device ever created in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
It's your cell phone.
Yeah.
People are so distracted by that cell phone. Everywhere they go, they have it on them. They can't walk anywhere without it. They go outside, they're on it. We could probably leave the studio right here, go outside in the open area, and we'll watch people walk down the sidewalk with their phone in their hand.
Yeah.
You know, and they have, and I tell people, if you're here on your phone, you have no idea what's taking place around you.
No.
There's something about that device that sucks out every brain cell in your head
Yeah.
and focuses it right there on that phone. You have no clue what's going on around
Well,
you.
what's funny is this year during the Super Bowl, they had a Super Bowl ad, and it was aliens that come in, and there's a bunch of UFOs, and they're trying to get everyone's attention, and they're zooming in, and they're all over the place, and everyone's down looking at their
cell
phones.
phone.
And finally, they had to send a message to everybody on their phones, and they sent out a message that popped up on their phones. Look up, you know, and everybody looks up and sees it finally. But yeah, it's funny, but it's also very sad.
Yeah, it is, definitely. And I like what you said when you're in the parking lot. You're kind of looking around, and I think to the point you're like, what if something happens?
Sure.
I've got this, I've got that available. And that's one thing I think that everybody should be thinking about everywhere they go. They should be playing the what if game with themselves.
Sure.
Give themselves some scenarios. What if somebody comes in with a gun while I'm at the grocery store? What am I going to do? From right here, what am I going to do? What if this person walks in and a fight starts? What am I going to do? Am I going to run? Am I going to try to help? What am I going to do? You should be playing these what if games all the time wherever you go, because we've all heard that saying, oh, the cream rises to the top. In a stressful situation, the cream's going to rise to the top, and you're going to
rise to the occasion.
And you're going to rise to the occasion. And I ask people, do you actually believe that? I go, that's a lie. That is the worst lie you could tell yourself. You're not going to rise to the occasion. You will fall to the level of your training. You will fall to the level of what you think about on a daily basis. If you play the what if game, and you run scenarios through your head of what would I do if this happened, or what would I do if that happens, then if something happens, you'll revert to your plan of what you thought about.
Yeah.
But if you never play the what if game, if you never think about those things, you will never be prepared. Your mind's going to sit there and spin and spin and spin, and now you've become that deer in headlights.
Yeah, helpless.
Now you're helpless.
Absolutely.
So we have to play the what if game, and the thing is, people play the what if game every single day, and they don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
That's when they drive. Every time you get behind the wheel to drive,
geez.
you are playing the what if game,
Oh yeah.
right? You check your mirrors. You check your rearview mirror and ask why. Because what if somebody's coming behind you really fast? You need to pull over in case they're going to hit you. If you check your side view mirrors, why do you check your mirrors? Because if I need to change lanes, I need to make sure I've got a clear lane. You play the what if game every single day of your life, and you don't even realize you're doing it. That's how good we are at doing it while we drive.
Yeah.
We just want to take that time that you drive and apply it to the rest of your life.
Sure.
So you play the what if game so often that you have no idea that you're doing it, but you're making yourself safe automatically.
Yeah, that's kind of like thinking about like when you first started driving. All of us remember the first time we backed out of a garage or out of a driveway. The first time we probably turned the radio down, right?
Yep.
So there's no distraction.
Exactly.
We checked everything out. Like if there's other people in the car, you're like, everybody be quiet. You're like, nobody say anything. I'm backing up. And you back up, and it was a big deal. And you got out, and you're like, and you're so stressed out. Because I'm seeing this now. Because my daughter, she's starting to drive, and she's going through the class, and she's critiquing me all the time. And I'm like, I tell her, I always kind of joke. I said, the reason I drive like this is to teach you, so I could make you aware of what not to do.
What not to do,
What
right.
not to do. Don't do what I'm doing. I'm just going to make you aware. This is all part of your training.
Do as I
And
say,
she's
not
like,
as
you're
I
a
do.
really bad driver. And I was like, yes, I am. But that backup, and think about this now, the first time that you ever did it, and anybody here that's been driving for a while, the first time you do it, super scary, stressful, the whole thing, turn the music down a whole bit. But now, today, what are you doing? You came out, you probably have, let's just say you're running late, you got breakfast, you got coffee, you're driving out, you're pulling out, you maybe, if you're a female, maybe you're doing some makeup while you're doing it. You're doing everything that you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
But it's such a routine that you're so used to it that chances are, unless there's somebody standing behind you or there's a car behind you, nothing has changed, and you're going to be able to do it.
Right.
And it's that muscle memory or whatever you want to call it, but that's what's going to go on. And I think that's the importance of becoming aware, because now you're not taking any more energy to be aware of your surroundings. You're just, this is what you do.
You just do what you normally do, right?
It's your training.
And they say that for something to become muscle memory, you have to perform that one task at least 1,000 repetitions for it to become ingrained in your mind that you just automatically do it. So I tell people, every time you go somewhere and you recognize an exit, that's 1 rep.
Yeah.
And then you look for another exit, that's another rep.
Yeah.
Man, you're on your way to making that 1,000 repetitions, but you got to practice.
Absolutely.
But it's easy and it takes seconds to do.
Sure.
To just, where you go, where's my exits? Where's my entrances? How do I get out of here if something happens? Give yourself a couple what if scenarios wherever you are. What if what if a car crashes here? What am I going to do? What if this happens? Give you a couple scenarios. You're starting to practice that thing mentally to where it becomes muscle memory. And then on top of that, if it comes to defending yourself or being attacked, we have to start looking around for what we call flexible weapons. What can I use in my environment to help me defend myself if that's all I've got? Even things that we have on our person. If you wear a belt, can I take my belt off and use that as a weapon to help defend myself off? Keys that you carry in your hand, glasses, hats, jackets, high heels if I wear high heels. What on my person can I use as a weapon to help defend myself just in case I'm being attacked? And then having that self-awareness presence of not having that victim mentality.
Sure.
Of always standing confident, always having that self-assurance everywhere you walk, right? How do you present yourself in public?
Sure.
So that you're not presenting yourself as a victim, right? And that all falls down into what you mentioned earlier, physical fitness, your mental health. Can I get up and down off the ground if I needed to? Can I crawl under something to hide if I needed to hide? Can I get up? Can I run away? Am I physically able to run away from something? Or am I physically capable to have to fight if I needed to fight somebody off of me?
Sure.
And that's where that physical fitness comes into play, and that mental toughness by being physically fit. Right.
I remember first time I went into the gym. This was in 2017, December of 2017. The first time I met you.
Yeah.
But I remember we did some push-up tests and challenges. You'd see how many push-ups you could do in a minute. And I remember you talking about the push-up form. And this kind of stuck with me because a lot of people put their push-ups and they're going way out here. And they're going to hurt themselves, do a lot of damage in their shoulders and stuff if they do that for a long period of time. But what you mentioned was doing a push-up in here. And the purpose of that, as far as a functional piece of fitness, is that if somebody's coming up to you, do you have the strength to push somebody away?
Yeah. Yeah, I say, are you going to push them away like this?
Yeah.
Or are you going to push them away like this?
Yeah.
And that's where we need to do our push-ups to be strong here.
Yeah.
Because here, I can't push anybody away like this.
Yeah.
Unless maybe I'm trying to push you that way or this way, right?
Exactly.
So, but if somebody's in front of you, I need to push them away here. So I've got to be strong here. So we've got to develop that functional strength at that point. So yeah, all those areas in physical fitness will apply to defending yourself if you have to. It becomes all-inclusive when it comes to physical fitness.
You talk about repetitiveness, learning a movement, and I see that really obviously in the gym. You guys are training jiu-jitsu, and you guys are doing the same move over and over and over and over, and week after week after week, going to these basic movements, and you're doing the same thing over and over again. And sometimes you kind of think, you're like, that's kind of got to be boring. But yeah, it probably is to a certain degree, because we always like the new shiny things, so we always go to that. But the minute that it clicks and you start going into a competition or whatever you're doing, and you're be able to bring all these movements together, and you have this flow, like it's all just memory. It's not, you don't even have to think about what's the next move, because you know what the next move is because you've practiced it so many times. Exactly.
Yeah, and that goes into that muscle memory, that repetition, where when you practice certain things over and over and over, not only do you have that repetition of executing that technique, but you have the awareness of, if I execute this technique and this person defends it by doing this, what other techniques do I have to follow that technique?
Sure.
Right. So you start developing these chain links, one after the other. So as I engage somebody, depending on what their response is, I have follow-up engagements that I can use depending on what they do to either push away or try to run away, or if they try to engage me, what am I going to do? And then if they do something else, how am I going to counter that? So you've got these links in the chain that you've developed over time of practicing those things of, if this doesn't work, I do this. This doesn't work, I do this. And it just goes on and on and on.
Sure.
Because you practice it so much. It just opens your vision up. And what that does as well too is it helps you calm down. So many people, when they get stressed, especially in a physical confrontation type situation, when that stress hits you, we tend to hold our breaths. We go, and we try to fight here, and we're not breathing, you're only going to last about 15 to 20 seconds. That's it.
Yeah,
and then you're exhausted.
Carbon dioxide.
So what that type of training does is it helps you to relax and breathe, so you're not holding your breath and you're not being winded within 30 seconds. You can grapple and fight for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour straight of just straight grappling, but you got to build yourself up to that. But it's a mental switch that you have to turn on. In a stressful physical confrontation, you've got to learn to flip that switch to where you're relaxed, you can breathe, and you may jump into this automatic mode where you're not really there, but your body's responding, and that's a great thing. Because now you're all on muscle memory, and you're working through these things quickly. But that's the benefit of those repetitions.
I think for a lot of people, and I think this is why, New Year's resolutions, you always hear about everyone's going to get in shape, they're going to do all these things. I think once the reality is that we all kind of go back to when we were younger, we all think back like, oh, I was an athlete in high school, I did this, it'll come easy to me. Because that was me. Like the minute I met you, I was like, yeah, I used to work out all the time, all this other stuff. And I remember the first time I had to do inchworms down.
I remember
and
that
I could
too.
barely make it down. It was I was like crushed. I was like, I used to be an athlete. But the thing is, and one of my good friends, and he's part of the show, Arturo, said, everything has a beginning.
Yes.
And if you understand that my beginning came now a little over 6 years ago. So people look at me today and they say, oh, I could never do what you do. Mm-hmm. Well, my beginning came 6 years ago, and it started very frustrating, and I just kind of worked through it, and I stayed dedicated and disciplined enough to get to this point where I'm at today, which is still not anywhere where I can go. But with training for physical fitness, if I encourage anyone to go into jiu-jitsu, or I think that you put on a couple of self-defense classes at the gym. Mm-hmm. We're going to give a plug though. TFW, if you guys don't work out right now, TFW, Training for Warriors.
Training for Albuquerque, yes.
Absolutely amazing facility, amazing gym. If you're going because you want to look at yourself in a mirror, this is not your gym. But if you're going because you want to get in shape, you want to get better, you want to have more mental clarity, you want to have more mental toughness, you want to just get better overall, phenomenal gym. This is now going on 6 years there. I love this place, and every single day I'm challenged. There's never an easy day. It's like we just get a little bit faster, it just gets a little bit harder. But with that said, what we're talking about today is this podcast is going to save your life, and it might not save your life in the sense that you think like, oh, I'm going to get in a fight and I could save here. It's going to save your life if you take some of these techniques and at least the idea of getting started in something. Mm-hmm. And in physical fitness, so many of us today don't take care of ourselves. We don't get off the couch. We're on the stupid phone. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say stupid phone because it is, because we're getting dumber by being on this thing all the time. Yeah. It's what I call the zombie glass. Have you ever seen that? Like when I first came out, I was like, this is like zombie glass. It's like, you're just doing that, and you're losing brain cells. But by doing that, if you can actually take advantage of what you learned today and get started in some kind of physical fitness activity, walking, running, joining a gym, doing whatever, this is going to save your life too, because there's going to come a time, and I'm listening to a book today. I forget his last name. Peter. He's a doctor. Peter Attia. Does anybody know the name? No. Peter Attia. But he's talking about the 4 horsemen, and the 4 horsemen are heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and then there's one more. But that's typically what comes as you get older. Yeah. But what we're talking about today is not only training your physical self, but training your mental self by being aware. And I think that really is going to help you in the long term. So it's going to save your life even if you're not in an attack.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, I always tell people in any self-defense class that I put on, in anything when it comes to defending yourself, I always tell people none of these techniques are 100%. No. Nothing is 100%. Even your mental toughness, your mental awareness, playing the what-if game, knowing where your exits are, those aren't 100% guaranteed that's going to save your life. Sure. However, it could give you a fighting chance. And a lot of the times that's all we need is a fighting chance to be able to survive. Yeah. Just being aware of your environment. A lot of the times when you're aware and you're present in your environment, not being on your phone, put your phone away, if you're present in your environment and you actually look around. So for example, if me and you were sitting at lunch at a restaurant and we're talking, we're having lunch, every once in a while, I'm going to break eye contact from you, and I'm going to scan the area that's behind you, and I'm going to look at things that are taking place behind you. Kind of real quick, I'm just going to kind of scan. I'll still be engaged in the conversation, but I'll scan behind you. Then I'll come back and I'll continue engaging in conversation. You should be doing the same thing for me because I can't see what's back here. Sure. So you should be scanning as well too. When you scan and you're aware of your environment, you can literally predict what is about to happen based on people's behaviors, based on how they act, how they're looking around at things, how they're walking at, how they're approaching people, how they talk to people. You can kind of get a good sense of, man, this doesn't feel good right now. I think we should maybe pay our bill and take off because this isn't happening over here.
Sure.
Right. So it's one of those things. One time I was sitting at lunch and I was kind of scanning around, and I looked across at the restaurant, and there was a guy and a girl sitting over there, and they were whisper yelling at each other. They were going, well, you know, that's,
yeah.
And then she'd go, you know, they didn't want to yell out loud because they're in a restaurant, but it was very apparent that they were in an argument, and they were kind of whisper yelling at each other, and I kind of went, man, that's not a good situation. So we kind of finished up having our lunch. I just kind of kept an eye on it, kind of played the what if game a little bit. What if something happens? What if something physical happens?
Sure.
What are you going to do? You know, so, but you become aware of those things of, man, that's taking place over there. You know, maybe we should, I don't want to stick around to see what's going to take place. And maybe we should just pay our bill and get moving and get on with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? But you can kind of see things around you, but you've got to be present.
Yeah.
You've got to put the phone down.
Yeah.
And again, I sat down at a restaurant, watched the whole family sit down at a table, and every single one of them, 5 people, every single one of them whipped out their phone and they all sat like this.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked and I went, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And, you know, I'm guilty of that as well, like everybody else.
Well,
right?
everybody is.
Like we're all guilty of it. But once you become aware that that's what you do or your family, you don't want to be the hypocrite. You can like, hey, let's all put our phones away.
Yeah.
And let's engage. Let's be here at dinner. Let's be present with each other. And I think that's just being aware of the situation. Because most of us, I don't think, are aware that we're always on our phones.
Right. Well, even visiting with family. There was a few times where we had a family get together at my parents' house, and we'd walk in, and my mom would hold up a basket. She said, put them in. And we're like, what are you talking about? Put your phones in the basket. I want to visit with you guys. I don't want to see you on your phones. So we kind of went, okay. We put our phones in the basket, and she hauled them off and hit them, and we had a great conversation.
And occasionally you'd have that withdrawal.
The little withdrawal, like I got to check my phone really quick, right? But we have to get back to, you know, visiting with each other, talking, having a conversation, not being distracted by these cell phones, because that's the only way. And I notice kids nowadays, they lack that ability to conversate with people.
Sure.
Because they've been so much on their phone, text messaging.
They don't know how to communicate. Social like awkwardness, like in communicating, like when you're being introduced to your friends' children.
Yes.
And they're a little timid. They're not like when we were growing up. We're like, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Good to meet you, sir. Whatever, ma'am. You know. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, hi. Why are you talking to me?
Right, you're going to shake my hand, but my phone's in this hand. Do I have to let go of my phone to shake your hand?
Exactly.
You know, things like that, and that's sad.
It is sad
that our kids are growing up not being able to socially interact with each other.
I agree.
Even call somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, I can't reach this person. They won't text back. Did you try calling them? Dial the number. Actually, talk to them on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, just something as simple as that, and that's where I call it the distraction block that everybody has, that's keeping them from being social with one another and actually engaging in people and having relationships and conversations and learning about other people, because you're so busy on that distraction block.
Or just communicating with people and not getting so many times with text messaging, you think someone's being rude, but they're not being rude. They're maybe not how you would interact. Yep. So you get upset, right? Has anybody ever been in that situation? I know I have. I'm like, what's up with this tone? You know, and you get a little upset. And there's a funny skit with Key and Pill, and maybe we'll include it in this podcast. But it's basically texting back and forth. And I've actually sent this to friends before when they get a little angry with the text. I'll send the text this video for them to watch, and it's so funny, but it's so true. It's because we take things the wrong way through email or text, and I think that's when it's important that we need to communicate so people can understand our tonality, you know, as if we're being sincere or if we're being serious or whatever else, And there's an only way to do that is through voice,
Right.
or through eye contact, or through one-on-one contact with someone. And I think we've lost that. But just watching body language these days, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is situational awareness. And recently in the headlines here in New Mexico, there was a very sad case that happened down southern New Mexico where a police officer had passed away. But it comes down to being aware of your surroundings. Sometimes we're too careless, or too, I don't know what the word, I'm not going to say careless, but we're too comfortable with interacting with people that we maybe should have that heightened sense of awareness.
Absolutely. And nowadays, because there's so many people on the streets nowadays with our homeless population, and you mentioned before that, our homeless people, they have to survive. Absolutely. I've had some run-ins with homeless people. I've actually talked to a guy who
you told me a story about a restaurant and an axe. I think you.
Oh yeah, yes. A homeless guy took an axe into a restaurant. But I had one as well. That was a guy was sleeping in the back of the gym at the back door, and I went to open the back door. He was there against the back door. I said, "Hey man," I said, "you can't sleep here." He went to get up, and he had this huge knife that he was sitting on. As he got up, well, for my safety, I grabbed the knife. And he had left kind of a mess out there in the back. And he goes, "Hey man, that's my knife." I go, "I get it." I go, "I know this is your knife." I go, "Man," I go, "look at the mess you left out here." I go, I need you to pick up this mess if you could, and put it away in the trash." He goes, "Okay, I will, but I need my knife." I go, "I'll tell you what, I'll hold on to your knife. I'll close the door. You clean up all this mess that you made, and then knock on the door when you're ready. I'll open the door and I'll give you your knife back." He says, "Okay, well, you better give my knife back. I need that to survive." I go, "I get it, man." I go, "I understand you need this to survive, but I don't want to deal with your mess out here." He said, "Okay." So I shut the door. About 5 minutes later, he'd knock on the door. I opened up the door, and of course I had the knife here, pretty secure. He says, "Okay, I clean up the mess." I go, "Okay, go and step back from me." So he stepped back away from the door. I go a little bit further. So I got him probably 20, 30 feet away from me. I opened the door. I took a look around. I go, "All right, hey, I appreciate you cleaning up your mess." I go, "Here's your knife." He was already about 30 feet away from me, and I threw it off to the side. I go, "There's your knife." I said, "I appreciate you, thank you." And I closed the door. I wasn't going to wait for him to get his knife.
Yeah, for sure.
So I closed the door, and he left. He went on his way. But they have to be armed to survive out there on the streets,
Absolutely.
in a homeless population like that. So anybody else who comes in contact with them, they're in danger of possibly being harmed because they're armed with either knives or some type of improvised weapon that they made up to survive out there. So that's a very dangerous situation.
And I think that's a good point, and that we kind of want to really hit that home for everyone that's listening to this, is when you come in contact with people on the street that are homeless, and they may be coming up to you for money. You don't know their mental state. You don't know any of these things. One of the things that just recently happened again in the headlines was there was a 22-year-old back east who went on a rampage and killed 4 people and stabbed like 12 people. And what had happened is there was no history of mental illness, they're saying. The mother was like, "I can't believe this is my son." He actually went somewhere. He said he smoked pot that was laced with something, and he went basically some hallucinogen or something that was in there. I don't know all the details, but it freaked the crap out of him, and he took off, he grabbed a knife, and he actually killed 4 people. And this was completely out of characteristic for this kid, 22 years old. Now, that's a situation where he has no mental illness, any of these other things. Something random happened, and sadly, people died because of it. Now, you take that same situation. You're walking down the street today. How many homeless people do you come in contact with on a daily? And I see panhandling is across the board everywhere. So people are walking around doing things. They're either on drugs, many cases, but more than not, they're probably some kind of mental illness.
Right.
And to your point, if they're walking around and this homeless person had a knife, how many of these people are walking the streets today that you're coming in contact? You're walking across, you've got your family with you, they look at you wrong or you look at them the wrong way and they don't like what happened. There's a good possibility you might have to protect yourself and get your family away. So again, it's just being aware of these situations. It's not saying that they're a bad person, but they're there to protect themselves too. And you don't know what's going on mentally with them.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so rampant anymore.
Or what drugs they're on.
Exactly.
This was the case down in southern New Mexico. It was the person that ended up killing the officer was obviously probably on some kind of drugs or mental issues or whatever, and ended up using a blade.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and the thing is, the knives, the improvised weapons, they're so fast, they're so deadly that, you know, your best bet is to keep as much distance from that as possible.
Well, there's something that you guys talked about is like, okay, so you have a gun and there's a person with a knife.
Yes.
And we're this close. What's the probability of me getting seriously hurt or killed from you having a knife and me having a gun?
100%.
Why is that?
At this distance?
Why is that?
Because the reactionary, what we call the reactionary gap.
Okay.
So the space between us.
Okay, I reach for my gun.
Right. By
I'm
that
probably
time,
already
I've got
stabbed.
the knife. By the time you, yeah, you'll be lucky if you get your hand on your gun at this distance.
Okay.
I'm on top of you right away. And there was a test that they did in the police department called the Tuller drill. And what it is they were measuring how fast an officer can draw his gun, point it out, fire 2 shots against an armed assailant with a blade coming at them. So they started out with like 5 feet away. Sure enough, that officer didn't even get to his gun. The guy was on him with a knife. They backed it up to 10 feet. Still, officer was able to grab his gun, but the knife guy was on top of him, fast and really fast. Backed it up to 20 feet. Still able to do it. It went back to 21 feet. Now, 21 feet is a long distance. At 21 feet, the person wielding the knife, an average person can cover 21 feet in about 2.5 seconds.
Wow.
The officer was able to draw his gun, punch the gun out, fire twice before he got stabbed. But if they just stand there, they're still going to get stabbed because that bullet's not going to take effect depending on where they hit them.
Sure.
It's not going to drop the person immediately unless you hit them right in the head or right in the spine where it cuts everything off, which is probably highly unlikely. So you still have an element of danger. Even though you hit the person twice with 2 shots, you still have to move around to avoid being stabbed until that takes place. That's 21 feet. And I think even recently they've increased it to 30 feet. And when I train police officers, I tell them, where do you ever have 21 to 30 feet available to you when dealing with a suspect?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
You're either in someone's house, you're in a bar, you're in a parking lot, you're on the street, and you don't go, okay, hold on, sir, let me back up 30 feet here so we're safe to talk to you. It doesn't happen that way. They're about as right here, we're within this distance. That can happen really fast.
Yeah.
So the best way to defend yourself is try to create as much space as you can. Try to extend that reactionary gap as far as you can and be ready.
Sure.
You've got to be ready for anything to happen.
You had mentioned, we were talking at the gym, and there's a marker test that you do. So you have somebody that's actually somewhat trained at grappling, and then there's someone that's not, and you give them a marker and a white T-shirt.
Yeah. So I was training. I was doing a defensive tactics class for the Albuquerque Police Department, and I had a group of officers, and I said, okay, we're on the knife aspect portion of the course, and I said, okay, I brought some white T-shirts. And I said, who here has grappling experience? And one officer raised her hand. I said, perfect. Put this white T-shirt on. So he put the white T-shirt on. I said, who here has no grappling experience whatsoever? A couple of people raised their hand. I go, okay, let me borrow you. So I brought him. I gave that person with no grappling experience a red pen, a red marker.
Yeah.
I said, okay, here's the drill. I said, for 30 seconds, you guys are going to go at it. I said, you with the white T-shirt who has grappling experience, I want you to try to take that red marker away from this person. Do whatever you got to do. Take him down, get on top, whatever you got to do. But I want you to try to take that marker away. The marker represents a knife. And I said to the person who has the marker, I said, you try to mark him up as much as you can with that knife. I said, okay, any questions? I said, no. I go, anything goes, grappling, whatever it is. Your job is to try to take that marker away. Your job is to try to mark up this person as much as you can. They said, great. I said, ready, go. 30 seconds, they were on the ground, and you see the marker flying like this in this guy's hand, changing hands back and forth. And
he's trying to take, one's trying to take the marker away.
One's trying to take the marker away, the other's trying to keep it. So he's doing this, he changed hands with it, he's doing this, change hands again, back and forth. I go, time, 30 seconds. They stood up, and I counted over 300 marks on that white T-shirt.
300 marks, that's crazy.
That red marker hit in 30 seconds. That's how
seconds.
fast these things can happen.
That's insane.
And that's the person trying to grab.
Take the marker away.
He couldn't get the marker away. And he's a trained grappler. This other person has no experience whatsoever in grappling. Sure. I was able to hold on to that marker and mark up that shirt about 300 times.
300 times.
In 30 seconds.
That represents a knife. You have slash marks, stab wounds, everything.
Absolutely.
You're pretty beaten.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's just say that the average person, that's okay, I'm on the street, somebody's got a knife, I'm trying to close a distance, they come out with me with a knife. Do I turn around and run?
So there's a couple of things that you can do.
Okay.
So because we're so close, if you turn and run, you're gonna catch me. You're gonna be on top of me. And the worst thing that can happen is I turn my back.
Okay. Never turn your back.
Never turn your back. I was taught a long time ago by one of my mentors. His saying was, always face your butt kicking. Always face it. If you're gonna get your butt kicked, face it. Because at least you have a chance to survive. If you even just doing this, you have a chance of survival. The second you turn your back, you can't see anything, you can't do anything, you've given up all hope. You're gonna lose that fight. So if we're at a close distance, a lot of times my best defense is to attack, is to engage you. Not to try to run away because you're on me with a knife or a club, whatever it is. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, is close that distance. And what we call in jiu-jitsu, the clinch. I want to clinch you up. I'm not trying to grab the weapon out of your hand. I'm trying to tie up your arm that has that weapon between the shoulder and the bicep and the elbow.
Okay.
Tie that up, pin that arm against your body, bear hug you, maybe wrap you up if I can. Yeah, I might get stabbed here in the forearm, but I've got your arm under control.
Sure.
Take you down to the ground. Now the ground is the great equalizer. It's like a third person. It's tough to fight off the ground.
Okay.
If you don't know how to fight off the ground and get back up to your feet, it can become very challenging. So I teach what we call the clinch. We clinch up, we take them to the ground. Now we can issue strikes, or we can do some type of punching and using your elbows to defend yourself. Loosen them up a little bit, grab the knife, take it away, and then create your distance from there. But that's in an extreme emergency situation where that person surprises you and you have no other choice but to engage. A lot of times when I teach people, if somebody has a knife, I go, if you have the distance and the time, get out of there. You don't want to fight with somebody with a knife.
Yeah, that's the best case is avoidance,
Best case is avoidance. You do not want to be having to square up with somebody with a knife. That is very dangerous. It's very fast. That's where playing those what-if games comes into play. That's where looking at people's behaviors. What do they have? And a lot of times you'll see people that have knives on their belts, or they're carrying concealed, or they have a gun in their hip. You'd want to avoid those situations. If there's somebody with a knife, I don't want to be close to that person, especially if they're being aggressive with somebody because they have a knife.
Yeah.
And that's a bad situation to be in. I do not condone anybody fighting anybody with a knife in their hand. That's a very fast and dangerous situation.
Yeah, you're not Jason Bourne by any means.
Absolutely. And I've even known people who have trained in knife defense their whole life and are really good at it. And I mean, they're so fast at knife defense, and they will be the first ones to tell you, if you're fighting with somebody with a knife, you're gonna get cut.
Oh, absolutely.
And these are guys who train knife defense their whole life.
Well, you had mentioned something also is making sure that you're defending, so you're getting cut here versus here, right? Because you obviously softer tissue.
In an emergency situation, if we're this close and you pull a knife and I've got no choice but to engage, I'd kind of want to start out by getting here, because if you happen to cut me here on the back of the forearm, there's not a lot of nerve endings here. I could take more cuts here than here. There's a lot of nerve endings here. If you take cuts here, this could sever tendons. It can make your fingers and hands not work well. So I advocate, if you have to do that, go palms towards you, and you attack here first. In case you do get a cut, it's going to hit you here and not in those vital areas.
Well, hopefully at the end of this, you can show us some moves. Maybe you can wrestle me, and I'll show our people how to at least do that. But there's going to be some other opportunities for them to engage and learn more of these self-defense techniques. I'm assuming, right? We've got some classes. Yes,
I got some classes that we're going to be putting on, open to everybody, general public, that can come in, and we'll be addressing a lot of these situations.
No, I think the number one thing is really understanding all that. How do you protect yourself? And the best, obviously, what we've heard is the best thing is to avoid always the situation if you can.
Absolutely, and I always tell people, fighting should be the last resort. It should never be an option, because nobody actually wins in a fight. Nobody wins.
Why do we? And this is probably an open-end question, but why do we as humans always think that we could take somebody else out? Like we're big and strong and we could take somebody. It's like, why do we always go for that versus hey, I'm sorry, let's just the passive, more less aggressive approach is hey, go about your day, have a good day. I'm gonna live my life. I'm gonna go over here. You live your life. Let's not end our lives together.
I think that goes back to our ancestral days of caveman and survival, and I need to survive in order to eat. I can't have this person getting my food, so you engage in fights over survival.
You know what's funny is road rage is a real thing, and I have no idea why this is the case, other than I think you're at a heightened sense. Everyone's at a heightened sense. Although we do it every single day, we feel comfortable in it, but we're moving at a very high rate of speed along other people that are moving at a high rate of speed, and we have this heightened state. You take that same situation where you brush up against somebody or you cut them off, and you want to kill that person. You don't care what's going on. You want them dead. You want blood. That's the craziest thing. You take that same situation, you're walking in a building, in a hotel, and you're going to an elevator, and somebody goes in front of you, you're like, oh no, after you. Or you brush up against them, oh no problem. Or you hold the door for them and they go in, right? You're not like out for blood. You're like, I am going to kill you. Why did you cut me off getting to the elevator? Like, why is that? Why is that so different? Because it's the same thing. Like, just let it go.
Well, and I think too, with driving, we all drive with emotion at time. And the bad thing about that, with driving and the road rage type thing, it's almost like arguing with somebody over email or text messaging.
The text messaging.
Yeah, you got a lot of courage when you're texting and telling somebody bad things, but when you're face to face with them, that's a whole different situation. You've got an immediate response there that you're going to have to deal with if you're rude or you do something to somebody that's not appealing to them. When you're in cars, you're protected at the time by your car, you're running off of emotion, and it's almost like text fighting with somebody. But once you cross that line, now it becomes that face-to-face thing, and a lot of people aren't geared to deal with that stuff. And
so scary nowadays,
and I always tell people too, I go, man, don't drive with emotion. If somebody cuts you off, let it go. They're going to get caught somewhere. Just hold your own emotions back, relax, focus on your driving. Because I used to be one of those people, you cut me off or you're tailgating me, oh, come on. I'd get upset. I start chasing them back, and it was a horrible thing. Now it's to a point where somebody cuts me off or they slam on their brakes, I almost hit them, and they take off. I'm going, man, just don't cause an accident. Don't kill nobody, man. Don't kill nobody. And they take off. And I just have to pray, and go, hope nobody gets hurt with that guy. Hopefully a police officer catches him somewhere or lights him up, to pull him over. But that's all you can do. You can't drive with emotion and deal with things like that.
That's the crazy thing these days. So the other thing is, like, I've been telling my kids this as they start driving. I'm like, I know you want to be right. But at the end of the day, don't give people looks. Don't flip them off. You don't know what's going on in their world. You don't know if they have a gun. You don't know if they're stable. It's the same thing as walking next to somebody else, like giving some people some grief. You don't know what's going on in their life, what's going on up here.
Maybe there's an emergency in this person's home and they're trying to get there and they're cutting people off trying to get to this emergency.
I've been there.
You never know.
I've been there.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, like, I don't make eye contact with people. I wave, like, if something happened or if I screwed up, I'm like, hey, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Like, I'm not trying to flip you off, make a bad day, or get shot today. So just like, but I don't think that a lot of people think like, oh, there's nothing manly or strong or anything else by trying to pick a fight in a road rage situation. That only ends in potential disaster.
Exactly.
The same thing with heightened sense of awareness on the street. Protect your family. Get off your phones. Like, stop looking. And I'm trying to do that, and it's so hard because these devices are so addicting.
Oh yeah.
Get off your phone. Be aware of your surroundings. When you're in a parking structure, be aware. When you go out to dinner, be aware. When you go to movie theaters, be aware. And I think there's a way to actually train yourself to do that. And again, is whether it's through going to TFW and training your body to get stronger, or joining jiu-jitsu or some kind of martial arts or some kind of training. I think everybody needs some type of training in order to protect yourself and your family.
Absolutely, and the whole benefit with self-defense classes is not only to learn tactics and techniques of how to protect yourself, but also becoming aware of what are my limitations physically, mentally. What are my limitations? If you never know what those limitations are, you never know how far you can push or defend yourself. So it's always good to know that I know that I can only do so much physically to defend myself in this situation. Other than that, I'm going to need help, I'm going to need a weapon, I'm going to need something. So it's always good to understand what your limitations are. Can you fall on the ground and get back up again? Can you run? Can you fight? You've got to know your limitations and then build your plan around that, right? So if I've got a bum leg or if I've got an injury where I can't run, you need to have a plan, because instead of running, you're going to have to do something else because you may not be able to make it out of there.
Sure.
If you're at the mall, well, at Coronado Mall when that shooting took place, one of our students was there, and he recognized what took place, and he said, Vicente, I said, what'd you do? He said, Vicente, I don't know what to do. I was kind of torn. He said, because I know life-saving CPR, was anybody hurt? Should I stay? Should I run? Everybody was just running. He goes, it got so bad that there were little kids that almost got trampled. He said he had to pull one out of the way because they were going to get trampled. You know, so situations like that, what are your limitations in a situation like that? Can you run? Can you hide? What are you going to do physically? A lot of the times in cases like that where people are running and panicking, kids and people who are not mobile are going to get trampled or hurt. Because in small groups, people are very intelligent, problem-solving, conscientious. In bigger groups, they become panicky animals. And it's all out for themselves. It takes one person to yell fire, one person to yell run, and then everybody's just in a panic.
Nobody knows what to do. Nobody
knows what to do. So what are your plans for that? If you have physical ailments, or if you're on crutches, or you're walking with your elderly mother or an elderly grandmother or a small child, how are you going to protect them? So you've got to be aware of those surroundings all the time. The situation, that's playing the what if game. What if I'm with my elderly mother or a very small child and something happens? What am I going to do? Normally, we have this fight or flight situation where either we're prone to running into danger or we're prone to running away. Let's say if I'm prone to running into danger, I'm trying to help somebody. What if I have somebody who's not very mobile? Am I going to take them with me to go fight the situation? Probably not. I'm going to have to run and get them out of there. And vice versa. If I'm prone to running, am I going to leave my elderly grandmother there and take off running and leave her there to fend for herself? I got to find a way to get this person out to safety. And it may not be running. We're going to have to find a different route, a different way of doing that. But you'll only be aware of that if you play those what if games.
You hear Jocko Willink talk about detaching yourself from the situation. You step back and you evaluate. And I think that's the number one thing that most people can do is just like take some time, really quickly, evaluate as quickly as possible. Don't just follow the herd running because that herd might be running into danger.
Yes, definitely.
Just because you're following them doesn't mean you're safe. So you want to make sure that you kind of detach yourself from the situation, evaluate, figure out a couple places for you to hide or to get out, exit the building, whatever you can. But just don't just run for the sake of running.
Exactly. And having that what if mentality can actually help you to predict things like that and know what you're going to do ahead of time before it happens. So if you're at the mall, something bad happens, shots fired, where's my closest exit to get out from? Where can I run to get out of that situation? Where can I hide if I needed to hide? Or if I had to, is the person close enough to me to where if I needed to fight, I could fight and maybe help save the situation.
You know what's funny is now, so I'm in the real estate business, so the number one thing I've always learned that I've done is when I knock on a door, I always step back and off to the side. And I don't know where that came from. I must have heard sometime. I'm like, but if somebody is on the other side and isn't expecting me and they're trigger happy and they shoot through the door, I want to make sure that they miss me. So I always kind of get off to this. I knock and I stand back and I get out of the way. Off somewhere. And it's just something I automatically do. And it's so funny because, I always tell people if they're with me, I'm like, hey, let's just kind of step back from the door. Because you don't know what you're going into.
And that's a perfect mentality to have. Always been aware. And I've run into people who go, man, Vicente, you live a paranoid life. And I go, I said, there's a difference. There's a difference between being paranoid and being prepared. I said, paranoid, you can't function in life. Like you're so scared of everything around you, you can't function. Being prepared, you can walk into any situation with confidence, knowing that you have a plan for whatever comes at you. You've got some type of plan to survive. Something that will give you a chance to survive. So there's a big difference, paranoid versus preparedness, right? We want to be prepared.
Well, it was kind of funny. I was actually at one of our properties and I was in the process of asking somebody that stayed over their welcome to leave. And I'm here at this property probably for 45 minutes to an hour and they're just saying stuff to my face, just trying to engage me and for me to lose my cool. And the whole time I just kind of like went back to this movie. It's called it's a spy movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I forget what it is.
True Lies?
True Lies.
There you go.
And he's in the car, he's driving, and the guy's just talking, and all he envisions is himself is just like doing this. The guy goes unconscious. He kind of like, basically kills the guy. And in my mind, I'm playing this. I'm like, I want to, like, this guy is like, he's making fun of my shoes. He's making fun of everything about me. Like, it is just, and I'm on the phone with our office, and they're like, wow, he's saying some pretty rude stuff to you. And I'm trying to stay as calm as I can, and I'm just kind of envisioning, like, me doing something. But then I started thinking, I was like, I'm not really trained to do this, to fight this person. If he's trained, he could take me out. So my best thing to do is to stay calm, leave the distance, like move away. Mm-hmm. And he kept following me, and I kept kind of pulling myself back. But that could have gone a pretty bad way, especially if he had a knife or something like that. I might not be here today because of that.
Right.
But it made me think, I'm like, I need to get prepared. I need to do something. And I did mention that at the gym. And one of the cool things is one of the gentlemen at the gym comes to me, and he's like, hey, I could teach you some basic self-defense stuff if you want to. I just want to teach you in case. And I think that's what's necessary, is people are willing to help protect their friends and teach them and all that stuff. But that really goes to that next thing. It's like, you need to have the willingness to do that, or just get yourself out of the situation altogether.
Absolutely, yeah. It takes some motivation, some effort on your part. To do these things,
sure.
to be aware of your environment, to take a self-defense class. And the thing is, with the self-defense class, just because you take one self-defense class doesn't mean that you're proficient in what you just learned.
No.
Learning self-defense, how to defend yourself, it's a perishable skill. If you don't practice it over and over and over, you will forget how to do it.
Sure.
So you should always be engaged in it somehow, some way, whether it's mentally, playing the what-if games, be present, know your environment, exits, entrances, things like that, as well as every once in a while getting on the mats and doing something physical and going over scenarios. Okay, what if somebody does this to me? What am I going to do? And learning how to deflect, learning how to create distance, learning how to take someone to the ground if you have to, learning how to fight off your back and get back up to your feet again. And going over some of those things over and over and over, even just on occasion,
sure.
Right? If the mat's open, say, hey, Vicente, can I borrow you for a second? Yeah, I want to go over this stuff with you. Cool, I got a few minutes. And I go over and then practice, and then go home and practice.
Yeah.
And run it through your head. Think about it all the time. Those are mental repetitions that you need, as well as those physical repetitions that create that muscle memory.
Well, our world is definitely not getting any safer, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's one of those things that we're all going to have to learn, and just kind of understand that this is something that we're going to have to learn, and we're going to have to get better. And by knowing these things, I think as a society, it'll make us all safer, because there's people that can actually take care of, and you can actually take care of your friends, your family, and all that stuff, and be, other than just them watching you get beat up because you're the big guy and didn't know what to do, right?
Even just making them safer by knowing how to get out of there.
Absolutely.
Just get the family out.
Yeah.
That's making them safer. And everybody else around you, showing someone where the exit is.
Sure.
And when I tell people, if you got to run away somewhere, don't just take yourself, take other people with you.
Yeah.
That's how we save lives.
Sure.
Get people to get to the exit, and not just yourself and your family, but encourage people to come with you to that exit, because this is the way out to safety. Right.
That's awesome.
So yeah, just sharing that with everybody else around you.
We could go all day talking about this, because there's so much here to unwrap daily. And I did promise you guys that this podcast is going to be maybe one thing that's going to help you save your life. And it's whether it's physical fitness, or getting to a self-defense class, or contacting Vicente here shortly. We're going to get you all his information, how he can train and help you to get to that next level, or joining jiu-jitsu, or whatever it is. But this is going to save your life. I can guarantee you this. If nothing else, you are going to start gaining more confidence in your abilities as you start training, as you get stronger, as you do things. And I always tell our team, I said, you need to create winning habits, because winning is a system, it's a habit that creates, just like losing. If you lose all the time, you're creating a habit of losing. Yeah. And we want to have winning habits for you in your life, in your business, in your safety, your family, all these areas. So I think it's super important. So how do people get a hold of you today? Are you on social media?
Yes, I am. We have a Training for Warriors on Facebook, Training for Warriors ABQ on Facebook. You can also reach me on my cell phone, 505-401-5249, call or text. You can also send me an email, tfwabq@gmail.com. Or I'm also on Joint Tactical Defense Training on Facebook. You can reach out to that site as well too.
Cool. And one of the things is, if you are any kind of law enforcement department. You are actually going out and training departments all over the state right now.
Yes, I do go out and I accreditate law enforcement agencies, their departments, and I also offer a defensive tactics refresher course for police officers, especially those departments that have that are smaller agencies that don't have defensive tactics instructors. They have to go to a bigger agency for their training, and sometimes that falls on the wayside. It becomes low man on the totem pole. So I always encourage officers to come in and see me to get that extra training. And I talk to officers a lot, and I ask them, well, do you guys go out and shoot? They go, oh yeah, we go shoot all the time. 5-6 days a week we're on the range. I said, that's good. That's good that you're proficient with your firearms. I go, but do you realize that as a police officer, you have a 1% chance of being involved in officer-involved shooting? And they kind of look at me and I go, as an officer, you have about a 99 to 100% chance of being involved in a physical confrontation.
Wow.
And I ask them, how much time are you spending on the mats to survive something like that? And that just brings that reality to them. And I go, you got to spend time on the mats.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like you guys are in a very intense job. You need to not take it so lightly, and I don't know if anyone does. I just think that they need to train more, and the departments need to really enforce more training in all areas so that they have a fighting chance out there.
Well, I think too, and in my opinion, I think a lot of departments have gotten away from teaching hand-to-hand combat because there's a lot of tools. They've got tasers, they've got pepper spray, they've got all these non-lethal tools, which are great. They're great tools to utilize. But what are you going to do when they fail?
Sure.
Because they will fail. Now you're forced to engage hand-to-hand combat. If you haven't been taught that or trained it enough, you're not going to be proficient in it. Or you're going to get people who don't know hand-to-hand combat and they panic and they escalate to deadly force when that wasn't needed.
When it wasn't needed.
Yeah, so it's one of those where we have to start from the beginning of teaching hand-to-hand combat, pain compliance, wrist locks, leverage takedowns, face-down stabilizations, things like that, so that they have the upper hand to arrest people. Then you if you have to jump from that to deadly force, you've at least tried something that's within reason. Because it's all about being reasonable. What's reasonable to officers in this particular situation?
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So we actually have a game that we play. I don't know if we have time for this, but we have, this is a game that... Oh, we could do the grappling. The grappling? We could do the grappling and the game. No, we'll do the grappling. So I think we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to be, Vicente is going to take me out. So stay tuned for that. Hey everybody, welcome back to Ultra Everything. So this is the part of the broadcast or the show that I get my ass kicked. So so that's what we're going to do now. So it's all over here in a second. So what's interesting here is there's about a 30-pound difference between the two of us. So size is not going to matter, as you're going to see here in a second, as I get my ass probably thrown on the ground or hurt of some kind of way. But Vicente, you're going to teach us a couple of different techniques. So I'm going to come at you a certain way, and you're going to
Sure.
some basic stuff.
So one of the most common things, and again, there's thousands of techniques. So many techniques that it's hard to put a number on, but on how to defend yourself, and it's all based on physical ability, what you're capable of doing personally. So the one that we'll go over today is one that is common. I see when people square up, they get into a fight. A lot of people start throwing those haymakers. I mean, they want to land a huge shot on you to knock you out immediately. Those are one of the most common punches to address. So again, anytime that you're talking with somebody or dealing with somebody, especially when we're talking about distance, the reactionary gap. If I'm talking to somebody who I don't really know, I'm not really sure about who they are, you'll notice I'm talking with my hands. My hands are always here, always here. I never talk like this.
Yeah, you're ready.
Or hands in my pocket, or arms crossed like this.
What you gonna do about it?
Exactly. If my arms are crossed, I have more of a cup and arm, and I'll be maybe like this because I can still move from here.
Yeah.
Anytime that we get stressed, we flinch. We tense up.
Tighten. Sure.
If I have my hands this way and you come at me and I tense, I literally trap my own hands like this. So sometimes I'll talk like this, right? Sometimes I'll be talking with my hands here, and I'm always in somewhat of what they call a bladed stance. I'm never square talking to them because this inhibits my movement, especially front to back. I'm off balance front to back with this type of stance.
Okay.
So I like to drop one leg back just for a proper balance. And I talk with my hands, and I start as I'm talking, I can see where your hands are. I can see they're kind of down here.
Yeah, I'm not ready.
Or even like in a clenched fist position. So I'm already evaluating that as I'm talking to you. And I always tell people we want to be from this position here. I always want to defend myself from here because you can go anywhere around the world and do this to somebody, and what does this mean? This means stop. Yeah. Stay back. Whoa, easy, calm down. And I can negotiate with you from this position. You can go anywhere around the world and do this to somebody, and this means we're going to throw hands. Yeah. We're going to fight. So I always tell people we want to be here. We always want to talk our way out. We never want to end up fighting. So if I got to be here and apologize to you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trip you or step on your boot. I'm really sorry, man. Yeah. I'm going to be here talking. Now I can still attack from here very efficiently. I can still defend myself from here, from this position. As a matter of fact, being here, this helps to keep me relaxed. My elbows are in, I'm ready to move if I need it to. So I always teach from a standpoint of from here, go easy, and always from a negotiating position, in a good stance, ready for just in case. But if I get caught off guard, at least I have my hands here. And if anything, if you were to swing at me or throw a punch at me, go and do that, I can at least bring my hands up to protect myself. At the very least, I might get hit, but at least I've got some guard.
I thought I was going to go flip it over with
you. So we're not doing any flips today.
It's like, I'm going to get hit.
We're not going to take it to the ground at all. But this technique was what they call a spear technique. And again, to that common haymaker. Now, as I'm here, the way that I teach the spear technique, I will never teach anything that I haven't used myself. I will never teach anything that hasn't been proven to work or that I haven't personally used myself. Now, when I started researching this spear technique, I was watching people do it, but I thought I need to prove that this thing works before I start teaching it. So I got a buddy of mine who I was at the police department with. His name was Jesse Beckton, and this guy was an all-around athlete. This guy was top of the food chain when it came to athletics, and he'd enter the police officers versus firemen boxing matches. He'd win those. The guy was just a super athlete. So I call him up. I go, Jesse, you should come down to the gym real quick. He's okay. He comes down, and I go, okay, I need you to give me your best haymaker as hard and as fast as you can do it. And he goes, he looked at me like, what? Are you sure? I go, yeah. I had a helmet on. I put a mouthpiece in first. I put a helmet on with a face shield. I said, okay, if this technique doesn't work and you knock me out, just help me get conscious again. I'll be okay. He's like, okay. He goes, so you want me to punch you? And I go, he goes, do you want me to aim for it? I go, yeah, I want you to give me everything. I want this to be a real life situation.
Sure. He
kind of looked at me like, are you sure? I go, yeah. I said, I've got to prove this works before I teach it. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to teach it.
Sure.
They said, okay. He goes, you're going to tell me when to punch? I said, nope. I'm just going to stand here. You decide when you're going to punch. I've got to read your body language. Because when you go to throw a punch, there's certain things you do. You lean forward, the shoulder comes back, everything starts to come into play when you start throwing a punch. I've got to be able to read that before I do this technique. So he said, okay. So he throws his haymaker. I step in, I hit the spear technique, and it literally pushed him back. And he was going, oh my God, my arm. And I went, woohoo, it works. I was so excited that I didn't get knocked out.
Yeah.
So that's how I proved that it worked, and I've been teaching it for a lot of years. Now, we're not going to do it full speed because that could be painful. If I miss or you miss, whatever the case is, that could be painful. So we're going to go maybe 20%, nice and easy, just a haymaker. And all this is if you put your hands here and you make this 90-degree angle, right? Okay. We're weak at this position. So if I try to block something from here, these can cave in, okay? If I go outside 90 degrees here, we're very strong in this position. So if you hold 90 degrees here, don't let me bend your arm back, okay? Bend back, right? Okay. Go outside 90. Stay strong. Don't let me bend your arm back. Okay. See how strong you are there?
Yeah.
So if I try to block you here, this is going to fail.
Sure.
If I go here, this becomes nice and strong.
Okay.
So as you throw that haymaker, and again, because we're so close, this is the only reason why I would want to step into this, because I've got no other choice. Because you're faster than I am at throwing that punch than I am to try to run away and defend it because of our distance. Okay. So this is the defense with a good offense, if I needed to. Now, every block can be a strike, and every strike can be a block. For example, if you were to throw a slow motion haymaker, if I was able to punch you in the arm,
that would hurt.
That's going to block that punch.
Sure.
I'm not good enough to do that in real life.
Sure.
But if I use my whole body to initiate that block, I can make that block become a strike. Okay. So with the spear technique, as I step forward, my aiming position is this forearm is aiming towards your collarbone here. Okay. The other one is aiming towards the crooks of the bicep, like right here in the center arm here, and I pop here. Okay. Okay. So slow motion, I have my hands here, the punch comes, I step in, and I block here. Okay, so anywhere a little bit harder, it's going to be an impact here, it's going to impact here, and this is all nerves, all on the side of this arm. So as I strike that, anything that's in your hand, if you have anything in your hand that I didn't see, is more likely probably going to pop out, because your hand's going to do this on that impact.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay, so with that punch coming up, I'm here, bring the punch in, I step, and I block. That hurts. Like maybe 20%, right? Yeah. So again, now you do it. So stand here. You're just going to step forward. This part's going to go here. This part's going to go here. Okay. Okay. All at the same time. Ready? And go. Just like that. You feel that thud.
Yeah.
Right? Do it again. Good. A little harder. Just like that. So that common punch where people go, oh, I'm going to punch you. Right? You're already ready, right? Yeah. So you step in, bam, and you block. And then from there, you can hit them hard enough to where they bounce back. Sure. Now that creates space for you to get away. We always want, when we're talking self-defense, we always want to create the opportunity to get away. If you use this technique, and the person falls, or you throw them to the ground, then jump on top of them and start ground and pounding, you're no longer defending yourself. You've become the aggressor.
Sure.
True self-defense is creating the opportunity to get away and not continue to engage. Now, if you have to continue to engage, for example, if I've got elderly family members that can't defend themselves, and you're for somebody that's approaching me in the parking lot of Walmart that's demanding money, and you decide to attack me, I can't run away and leave them there, so I may have to continue to engage you until help gets there. Sure. Right? So there's different situations that you can have to be aware of for that. Okay. So again, it's the spear technique, and again, your target area is collarbone here, crooks of the elbow, outside 90, stepping in. Okay, and then from there, once I block that, bring that punch, or bring the punch. Once I block, now I've got options, right? If I can, I can try to duck under. If I have to continue to engage, I could clinch you here. Now once I clinch, I can start taking you to the ground or try to trip you to get you to the ground to mobilize you. Okay, so there's a lot of options from there. Or if I stop the punch, bring the punch, I stop here. If I hit you hard enough, now I can disengage and I can run away, or I can look for anything else I can use to help defend myself with. Okay. So that's the most common thing that we utilize. Of course, if I have space, I'm going to try to talk my way out of it and get out of the fight. Yeah. If you continue to close the distance on me, I've got no place else to go. I may have to fight. Now there's no other choice. Sure. Right. And the thing is, when we're talking about the reactionary gap, if I'm so close that I can touch your shoulder and you can touch mine, this is really bad. I should not be in this situation. Because if we're sitting here having an argument, I don't care what self-defense techniques I know. I don't care who you are. If I'm this close to you and you decide, I'm going to smack this guy right in his face, there's not a whole lot I can do about it. I'm going to get hit.
Yeah.
Because by the time you pick that hand up and I recognize it, it's already too late. I'm getting hit.
So always make sure you have enough distance away.
Distance is your friend.
Okay.
When you're trying to defend yourself, get as much distance as you can. Because again, if I could touch you, you can touch me. Very bad situation.
So my body language now, I'm holding my hips or I'm doing this like as if you were the aggressor. This is bad for me to be here.
Yes, because you can't pick your hands up in time.
Yeah, this is a bad.
I'll always talk. I'll always be here.
I'm trying to be like diffuse the situation, but what you're doing is like, hey man,
Yeah.
we're good,
Yeah.
rather than being, hey man,
Yeah.
just you were good, just
Yeah.
calm down.
Because if you're here, this isn't a good posture. You can't defend
move
it.
fast. Okay.
Exactly. But if you're here, whoa, easy, man. I'm sorry, dude. I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to offend you in
Yeah,
any way.
because if I had a knife coming up
Yeah.
for a knife,
And if that's that fast, if I try to run, you're on top of me before I can take the first couple
Sure.
of steps. If you had that knife and it came forward and I was able to see it, even if I didn't see it, but I saw this punch coming,
yeah,
I can hit this spear technique. And now if I see that knife there, now I can just try to duck under,
Yeah.
get away, clinch you if I have the confidence to clinch you and take you down. But at least you have options. But once I turn my back,
yeah, I'm coming.
there's no options.
Sure.
I've given up all hope, right? But at least if I'm here, I can defend myself somehow, some way to keep you from hopefully killing me. And again, nothing's 100%, but it gives you a fighting chance.
Sure.
As long as you're facing your attacker, okay? So that's pretty much that basic technique from there.
Cool.
Distance is your friend, and you can gauge your distance by being here. Because if you start to come closer to where I feel I can touch you,
Yeah.
that means you could touch me.
Okay.
And I don't want this. And the thing is, because of the reactionary gap and how quickly things can happen, I don't have to wait for you to punch me to claim self-defense. You keep closing that distance, making that reactionary gap smaller, I'm in imminent danger. I can attack first and still be defending myself. Based on your aggression, your behavior, I
Sure.
can still be defending myself.
Okay.
So you don't have to wait for them to throw the first punch at you. You can attack.
So what if we have a woman situation and we just happen to have a woman right here? So
Fantastic.
Is
Come on
me?
over.
Come on up here. Look at this.
Hello.
Hello.
She's gonna be aggressive,
Hello.
and I'm gonna stand back now. I'm a little nervous here.
So through my experience, most women are in danger of being controlled. Immediately they get grabbed by their wrist. You're coming with me, or they get picked up and try to be taken away.
Yeah.
Right, put into a van or something. That's what we don't want to happen. So one of the things that we talk about is fighting off that control. Okay. So for example, I'll borrow your time real quick.
Okay.
So if you grab my wrist, right, it doesn't matter which hand. If I still have one hand available and you start to pull me, what I don't want to do is go no, and now I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
Unless I'm in public and yelling and screaming to get attention to us, this is really not accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
So the way that I teach is if you grab my wrist, you've just tied up one of your weapons that you have to defend yourself with. We're equal here. Right? So as you go to grab and you try to pull me, I'm not one to pull back. I'm more apt to give you what you want. You pull me, I'm coming in too.
And
I may be coming in with an elbow, with a claw to rake your eyes out, with a punch to the nose. If you're gonna pull me in a direction I don't want to go, don't be surprised when I bring something with me.
Yeah.
Okay, to give to you, right? And the target areas that we want to focus on are the eyes, the nose, and the throat area. These areas are what we call flinch response areas. They create a flinch response. If you get poked in the eye, what's your response? Ah, my eye, right? That's a flinch response. That buys you time to be able to decide what to do. If you've ever been hit in the nose, that causes a flinch response. Your eyes shut, you go, oh, my nose, and you flinch. Or if you've ever been hit in the throat, you go, oh, that was my throat. Those are flinch responses. So those are those target areas that I want to attack if you try to grab me, control me. I'm not going to go, if you grab me, I'm not going to try to do anything fancy with any of this. You grab me, I'm going to attack you. And I always tell people, nobody has the right to put their hands on you.
Sure.
Nobody. Unless you invite them to. If they grab you and you have not invited them to put their hands on you, there's a price to pay for that. And it should be a very steep one. right? Anybody puts their hands on you when you tell them no, right? So again, if I were to grab you, to control you, no sense in pulling away. I'm stronger than you. I'm going to drag you over, right? Yeah. So as I pull, your target there should be eyes, nose, or throat, and open your hands. Look at those.
Deadly weapons.
Look at those Wolverine claws, right? Why not use these?
Yeah.
These are a good personal weapon. So as I go to pull you, you should be raking my eyes. You should be punching at my nose and elbow. Anything to cause a flinch response.
So the minute you pull, you've got that momentum too.
You've got the momentum, and you're just coming at me with everything you've got. Okay. So that's one way of dealing with a situation like that. One of the most basic ways. I always teach if you grab me, don't be surprised at what I deliver or what I bring with me, right, to this unfortunate situation. Another thing is if someone tries to pick you up to take you away. One of the things that we do, and I'll have you demonstrate on me, is if they grab from behind, right? If I do nothing, he could just pick me up, go pick me up, and I'm being carried away.
Your back cracked too.
And my back popped.
It's like a chiropractor.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do to keep that from happening is as I get picked up, you can pick whichever leg you want. You're going to wrap it to the outside and hook the leg. Okay, so now go and pick me up. I hook, and now he can't pick me up. Now my weight's like tripled. So now try to pick me up and walk with me a little bit. It's just normal, pick me up, walk. See, I'm getting picked, I'm going to get carried away. Now try that again once I hook. We're not going to go anywhere, right? And it could be either side. Okay, you want to hook to the outside so they can't drag you away. Then from there, it's a fight, and I'm throwing elbows. I'm throwing my head back to headbutt.
You're doing everything you can.
Everything you can.
Because you do not want to get wherever they want to take you.
Exactly, and again, by throwing my head back, hopefully their head's here, and I'm affecting the nose, the eyes, maybe the jaw area to create that flinch response. To hopefully help them, get them to let you go.
This is almost your last defense because if you get taken away, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah,
potentially.
Now it becomes a whole nother.
So this is a fight for survival. If somebody's trying to pull you or take you away, it's fight. It's like This is to the death because it could potentially be.
Absolutely. If they're attacking you from the front, same thing to lift you up. If you attack me from the front and you can lift me up, right, same thing. And my back cracked again.
You're welcome.
So do it again. I still hook. I hook. And now he can't take me anywhere. He can't pick me up to drag me. Then once that happens, he wraps up. I lock up. Now, like I got two free hands if they're available. Now I can grab the eyes, pull his head back, and now I hammer fist right on the nose. Not once, not twice, as many times as possible until they let you go. And then
so you're just beating the hell out of them as you can.
You're beating right in the nose. Oh. And if you have claws, rip their eyes out, hit them in the nose, attack those areas that are flinch response areas that can cause them to do this and try to cover their face. That's how they let you go. There's your opportunity to run away.
Because most of them aren't going to keep going. Like if that happens, most people are like, this is too hard, I'm taking off.
Yes. Especially that it's the natural response. A flinch response is something that we can't control. It's like sneezing. You realize that your eyes blink every time you sneeze? Yeah. For the last 5 years, I've tried to keep my eyes open. It hasn't worked. My wife even tells me, don't do that, your eyeballs might pop out. There's a reason your eyes blink. That's a flinch response. You can't help but do that. Same thing, you get hit in the nose, you can't help but do this and react to that.
Yeah.
You can't help but react to when your eye gets poked, flinching and covering up. Those areas are very sensitive areas that will cause you to do this.
Yeah.
So those are the areas that we want to attack.
Awesome.
So frontal attacks, hook, don't let them carry you away. Use those claws, rip some eyes out, hammer fist the nose several times until they let you go. If it's from the back, hook the leg, become heavy, and we're fighting with everything we've got to get them off. And there's a lot of techniques using the arms, like pushing your hips away. That takes some time to practice, but something really quick, bare bones type stuff, you're in a fight.
Yeah.
Just keep them from carrying you away.
So I think the biggest thing is I think you need to practice this, you need to learn this, obviously. So one way to learn this is enroll in a class.
Come into a class and we'll go over more techniques than just the ones I'm talking about now. We'll go over how to create arm bars, how to create leverage, taking people to the ground if you have to, and how to get up from the ground. If somebody takes you down, how do I get from the ground to fight, right?
Yeah.
So those are a lot of things that we cover in our self-defense classes.
Awesome.
And I always ask people, what have you seen, or what have you been, what have your experiences, or what do you have questions on? Let's put a scenario out there, and see, and let's work through it. I see people go, well, what if they grab you this way? Okay, good question. Let's work through that. Let's look at this. And we'll dissect it and figure out what the best technique would be to get away.
Sure.
So it's just not just this set program. I'll teach all these things, then I want to know, what do you guys want to see? What questions do you have?
Sure.
And then we take what we learned and we apply it and try to dissect those problems.
Awesome.
So that we know how to respond.
And it's just not taking one class. It's going to be a reoccurring learning and always practicing and getting good, because you never know when you're going to need it, right? That's
Absolutely. It's a perishable skill. If you don't practice this, you're not going to be able to respond.
That's awesome.
If you don't practice hooking that leg and throwing elbows and learning how to throw a proper punch, learn how to throw a proper elbow, that you'll forget.
Yeah.
It won't be a muscle memory anymore.
That's awesome.
And when something happens fast, your body should just react to those things. If you don't practice it, you won't react.
That's good.
And you'll be that deer in headlights.
Well, we appreciate you sharing with us. It was awesome. So again, we're going to include his links, all his contact information in this video. I encourage you guys to reach out to Vicente. Start today. Don't wait. Just don't say, this is something I want to do. Take action. Call. Get it scheduled, because your life and your family's life depends on it. And we appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having
All
me.
right, absolutely. Thanks for being
Thank
our...
you so much.
Come with me. She's gonna claw me. So with that said, in life you have options, but you know what? Let's just take the next option. Let's ultra up and let's take it to the next level, guys. Have a great one. See you next time. All right, guys. I am talking to you specifically. If you are someone that is doing things to the ultra level, I want to talk to you. If you know of somebody that's doing things to the ultra level, I want to talk to them. So comment below, tag them on here, give us a call, hit us up on social media, DM us, whatever you got to do to get your information to us, because we want to talk to you, because we are interested in definitely learning more about what you're doing in your community and the people that you inspire around you. So definitely ultra up and give us a call.